Hey folks, Lance DuGoud back once again, sixth installment of the COVID coronavirus presentations here. I'm just trying to get you guys some information. If you go through the other videos, first one's about basic virus virology information, so you get an idea about how viruses work, how they don't work, why mutations are good, how that affects them, how it hurts them. Video 2 in the series is looking at hand washing, how soap works, just basic soap, no chemicals necessary, ultraviolet light, friction, basic things that we're already doing without knowing that we're doing them and how that affects viruses. Video 3, chemicals, why you should avoid the chemicals. We think chemicals are bad, we think chemicals are helping us, we think they're dangerous, we think we're not actually putting them into our mouths. What's the difference? I'm going to show you in that video exactly articles published from 1989, 1998, 2004, 2019, articles that have very clearly shown that these chemicals we're using are not active in a normal environment against human coronavirus. They have to be mixed with other severe, really rancid chemicals, phenols, hydrochloric acid, in order to be effective in suspension for sometimes minutes, 3 to 10 minutes at a time. And that's not stuff you'd ever want to put on your skin, on your counters where you might put your food, but also articles in there that say specifically what happens when you breathe this stuff in, what happens to respiratory distress and respiratory patients when they inhale these disinfectants. Disinfectants that we use very commonly in the hospital setting, on our sinks, on our counters, on our hand wipes. What happens when you accidentally ingest that stuff, when it actually gets into your bloodstream? What happens when a fetus is exposed to it? There's a link between autism and benzalkonium chloride and quaternary ammonium compound. So watch video 3. You're going to learn a lot. It's a little bit longer. It's about a 20-minute video, but don't be daunted. Just be patient. Watch it in pieces if you have to, and just kind of gnaw it over. Check out the articles and read through them. Video 4, a little bit about masks, social distancing. What do you know? What do I know? And why is what I know so unique from maybe what you know? You think you got an idea about, well, maybe the mask, I think the masks are working real good. Watch the video. You might learn something. It might be interesting. Number 5 is about the testing that's being done out there. It's only 80% specific at best. Some tests compared to that are actually less effective, less specific. And so you just might learn things. This one about the death toll overall. And hopefully I won't belabor too much and blab on too much, but no promises. So let's get started. There's current errors in our belief system. We're comparing old standards of testing to new tests that are available. We're looking at RNA or nucleocapsid proteins. Both tests can be positive without an actual infected virus. You can be a positive case. Again, watch the testing video. You can be a positive case when they actually don't have a positive control on the test. That'd be like taking a pregnancy test and having one test light up, where it says control, it should be lit up, and then the other one doesn't. You go, I'm not pregnant. But what about if that test has the control not light up, but the test shows positive? What are you supposed to do? If you read the package says if the control line didn't work, then do not interpret this as a positive test, retest. So the fact that we are considering people positive and don't have a positive control is a little bit ridiculous. There's no current test to tell you if you've already been exposed and cured, because if you've already been exposed to it, you don't need a vaccine for it. The vaccines are currently dangerous. We don't know how effective they're going to be, and let's be quite frank, so many people have quote-unquote been tested positive that, what do they call it, herd immunity. At some point, most, if not everybody, will be exposed to it. We know how to treat people now, okay? The different approaches to treating people. We weren't doing steroids to reduce inflammation, to reduce cough. I apologize, it's misspelled. We weren't using steroids to reduce coughs. We weren't using antibiotics because physicians say it's a virus, it's not living. So anti-life, antibiotics aren't going to be useful against the virus. Yeah, but they forgot about opportunistic pathogens. Apparently they forgot their epidemiology courses from whenever they took them. You use these in severe cases, even though it is a virus, to protect yourself from natural pathogens in your body, things that are already there that can cause you bigger problems when your immune system's weakened. The intubation wasn't killing people. The tube itself is sterile. It was the crap in the airways and the profound inflammation that was causing these issues inside of patients. And so the intubation wasn't actually killing people. It was the lack of therapy that was causing them more harm. I'm sorry if that hurts anybody's feelings, but it kind of is the way the facts are laid out for you. If you go to this link here, let's see, if you do a search for CDC severe outcomes among patients, you'll find a table that looks like this at the bottom. It says table at the bottom, but you can see down how far I am down the scroll. You can see all these ranges here. What really chaps my hide is that they're giving you ranges of percentages of people in a certain age category that will have severe outcomes. 31 to 70% of people will have severe outcomes. Look, if you had 100 people in the hospital, either 31 or 70 had the problems. 31 out of 100 people is 31%. You just count the total number of people, you count the people who had severe outcomes, and you say that's your number. Having this range, this is ridiculous. What makes it even worse is, if you look at the star, the asterisk at the bottom of the page, it tells you the lower number is the percent who are hospitalized, admitted, or died. The higher number is the percent who are hospitalized, admitted, or died with known status. So I think that's ridiculous, that you should have all their status information. You can't just tell me that, oh, there's a group of people who we didn't know what their status of health was, what their status was at admission. What are we talking about? We don't know their status, don't know their status of positive, negative, how long they've had it. It just is just ridiculous. So what they did was put a huge fear tactic into people. Okay, huge fear tactic, and then you get up to this 10 to 27%. Well, what case fatality? What do you mean 10 to 27%? Either you died from it or you didn't die from it. You can't have 10 people who died from it and 27 people who died from it all in the same 100 people. You have to have a number here. So somebody over at the CDC is not very good at math. It's extremely misleading. It's very, very fearful, and I just don't think that that's very kind to do. And I put in here as a facetious remark, thanks for clarifying that you not only don't know enough to make a statistical claim, but you also don't care enough about our sanity not to misrepresent the facts. They're misrepresenting things, and that's just stupid. The death toll is unrealistic. That again, the tests are only 80% specific, which means 20% are not actually positive. They're counting post-mortem. They're counting people who already died of causes even not associated with COVID-19. Somebody gets hit by a bus, somebody has a heart attack, whatever. Somebody goes into diabetic coma and dies. They're swabbing their noses to see if they also have the presence of the virus, and then they're saying tick, put that on the tally of how many positive cases, tick, put that on the tally of this one was positive at death. That's just moronic, and it's unrealistic. And we infer the deaths are from COVID, not for the presence of RNA in the dead person. So that's just not fair. It's not fair for people to believe one thing because they're being told only a piece of the information. Again, death toll is unrealistic because the antibiotics weren't used for months, neither were steroids. We should have been using them from the start after seeing what happened in China. I say the physicians are really like bending my last nerve with their just, and not everyone's incompetent, not all police are bad, I get that, but by God, if you saw that many thousands of people suffer, thousands of people die in China in days, they were suffering and dying. Not that they were suffering and dying in months, in days. The same person, one person was suffering and dying from this. You should have been using steroids and antibiotics from the start. You weren't. Why? Because the mantra is, oh, it's an antibiotic and you don't use antibiotics against steroids. Why? Because the gold standard is you don't put antibiotics into a viral patient. You're not going to hurt the viral patient by putting an antibiotic into it. What are you worried about? Antibiotic resistance? I'm going to have a video about antibiotic resistance. And it's obviously something I know more than the physicians do about, and they need to be doing better. For crying out loud, y'all make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year. You're some of the richest people on this planet, and you can't even make the simple decision to say, hey, you know what? I don't want to see my patients die like the folks did in China. I don't want to see them suffer like they did in China. Make a better decision. We trust you with our lives. Again, why the death toll is unrealistic. Cleaning agents are a risk factor, making things worse. If you watch that video, I believe it's the third video, it'll show you how we can cause more respiratory distress and respiratory disease and respiratory problems by the use of these quaternary ammonium compounds like benzalkonium chloride. So there's a bunch of other quaternary ammonium compounds out there, but just know that the risk is out there and that we could have made things worse by the heavy cleansing. Okay, and quite frankly, the lack of the cleaning supplies, the lack of ability for people to buy the stuff may have actually helped reduce the severity. Because if you developed symptoms, respiratory symptoms, COVID-19 early on, they couldn't, if you weren't severe, you didn't go to the hospital, you didn't get hospitalized. But what did you do? Stay at home and cleaned, or everybody cleaned around you? Maybe we made our symptoms worse in our sick patients. So people keep asking, when will we see the death of COVID? Well, it will never die. Go back to video 1. It's a virus. Viruses are not alive, so they can't be killed. Okay? Coronavirus. It's been around for tens, if not hundreds of years, maybe even longer. There'll be more. Again, it's a part of the normal common cold, causative agents, respiratory syncytial virus, rhinovirus, parainfluenza, and coronavirus. So we're going to see COVID. Anytime somebody gets the sniffles 5-10 years from now, we're still going to have a test for it. We're going to test for it. And unfortunately, the news is probably still going to be reporting, oh boy, we got another outbreak, 10 cases in the state of such and such. It's ridiculous. But you know what? COVID sells. It sells the news, it sells drama, it sells gloves, it sells tests, it sells doctor visits, it sells drugs, vaccines, even masks. When the woman walked into my office at 68 years old, smiling under her mask, she says, "I'm so happy that they came out with these masks because now I can go out again." This designer mask that matches her designer purse made by some fancy designer. Yes, it really happens. And yes, she really bought it. And whether she bought it for $1 or $20, if you go back to my video, I believe it's the 4th video about masks, it's not an N95 mask for sure, but if you look at those N95 masks and what I say about those, this lady is putting herself at just as big a risk as she could have been by going out with nothing on her face at all by wearing this silly designer mask. So COVID will die. COVID will die when we decide to realize we're surrounded by infectious organisms every day. We need to live healthier and we need to live happier. We need to be proactive about being ill and not sharing with others. Don't go to work talking about your sniffly, snotty kid and coughing and sneezing on your coworkers. Stay home. And our employers need to understand that even if it's not COVID, we need to be smarter. For as much as our employers love their money and got to pad their wallets, and that's what they got to do every day, we also need to say, hey, you know what? People will be happier when they're healthier. People will work harder when they're happier and when they're healthier. And people will be healthier when you get to let them stay home and get over their illnesses and not share with everybody else at the office. Because let's face it, you get one person sick, if you let them stay home, maybe everybody else stays healthy. You bring that sick person into work, maybe they take off a day, then make somebody else work, they take off a day, another person takes off a day. You've actually lost more time in employment by not letting that first person go home. So getting down to the nitty gritty, last video had at the end the probes. If you go into GenBank, you look at those probes if you're a sciencey person. If not, and you just like to play around, you're not going to break the internet by looking it up. But go into GenBank and just type in the probe and look specifically for bats. That's the most curious one because there were a number of bat strains. Bat strains that were isolated but in the 2020, but from February through July. There were a number of different bat strains that were isolated from bats, not from people, bat strains that match those probes at 100%. So where did it come from? Look, if I'm right, I had it back in November of 2019, just a few days after Thanksgiving when I had chest congestion and a fever, when China was first seeing it too. It was a pandemic before the government, CDC, and WHO decided to call it one, okay? So first of all, stop saying pandemic because let's face it, if you don't leave 20 miles from your house, you're not pandemic, you are endemic. You are in an isolated area. Pandemic, just because it's around the world, if you're not going to Italy, you don't have to worry about it being in Italy. If you don't have somebody from Italy over to your house, you probably don't have to worry too much about it. Yes, it's around the world, but don't fear everything just because the word is available to us. The flu is a pandemic every year. We just don't keep track of how many cases are in China or Italy or Switzerland. So just know that you just need to keep yourself healthy and your family healthy. And next step, let's all stop blaming China, okay? Even if this came from a bat, even if this came from a bat in the food markets of China, I wasn't in China. I didn't see a bat. I didn't get any food from China, okay? But somehow in November, I think 50 of my clients also had it. So it probably was around. It probably spread, and it wasn't China's fault. It was the bat's fault. It wasn't the bat's fault. It was the virus's fault. It went from being a bat virus to being a human virus. Have you ever seen or heard the avian flu? Yeah, we'll see cases here and there. Some news reporters say, oh, avian flu has popped up again. Yeah, because it was in a bird. It changed. It mutated. Most mutations render it inactive. Some mutations change it enough that the avian flu comes into humans. Well, maybe this is a bat coronavirus that went from a bat into humans. Not a big deal. So stop blaming China. Stop blaming the scientists. Okay, the scientists are just collecting these viruses because they make money on learning about these things, and we want to know more about these things. If they didn't have it, we wouldn't have the information that we currently have. Not that that information is that useful, but we wouldn't be learning more about it. So stop blaming the scientists. Complaining about either group wouldn't stop bat poop, and it wouldn't stop bioterrorism. So just relax and stay healthy. Sadly, this is one of the many times in life you really don't have any control. Remember, hoarding, buying up all the toilet paper, buying up all the flour, and not being kind to your neighbors is not a healthy lifestyle, and it always makes, it only makes the panic and lack of education worse. Okay? So be kind, be nice, do the right things. How would you want people to treat you if you couldn't find any toilet paper to buy, right? Be well, be happy, be safe, and think of others before yourself. It will grow your heart, it will make you stronger, and others will love you for it. So if you're kind to others, they'll be kind to you. If you're kind to others, you'll feel good. If you're kind to others and they're not kind to you, I just was at the post office and I wished the lady a happy holiday, right? Because you can't say Merry Christmas because not everybody's a Christian. You can't, okay, so there's so many different things out there in this world that you can and can't say or should or shouldn't say. So I just said, hey, have a happy holiday. And she just turned her head and looked back at the counter. And I thought, okay, not a big deal. I'm not going to get worked up over it. Maybe she's having a rough day. And I turn around, there's a line of 8 people in that post office. So I'm like, oh, that's probably what the problem was. I didn't think badly of her. I just was surprised. And when I turned around, there was my answer. There was my answer. She was just about to have a scary moment or a bad moment because there were so many people in there. So be well, be happy, be safe, and think about others before yourself. It'll grow your heart. It'll make you stronger, and others will love you and care you for it. All right, so again, stop arguing over where it came from. I told you about the matches that it makes at 100%. These probes match 100% to certain bat coronaviruses that have been isolated out there. It matches 100% to a human COVID isolated from Europe. It matches up to 95%, even 100% to non-COVID coronaviruses that we already have on hand, that we already know a bunch about, and that are already out there, that we could be seeing positive cases of non-COVID coming up in these tests. So let's not argue where it came from. Let's just stay healthy. Wash your hands, soap and water. Go back to that video, check it out. No chemicals. Watch out for the chemicals. They are unhealthy, unsafe. Please watch video 3. That will probably change your lives, everybody's lives. Even if you go, yeah, I know chemicals are bad. Believe me, I was stunned. When all this came out, I thought to myself, I wonder. And then when my wife said, oh, blah, blah, this, that, and the other thing, and I said, you work with autistic children. She says, yeah. And I said, I wonder if there's a link. And she says, no, it's just we're testing more. So I pulled up an article, and my wife sat there for about 2 hours reading this article over and over, sort of in disbelief, and reading more articles once she got into that. The cholesterol biosynthesis, we know that compound affects the biosynthesis of cholesterol, and we know in autistic, in Parkinson's, and these neurologic conditions, there is a dysfunction in cholesterol biosynthesis, so we know there's a connection. So watch that video. I know I talk a lot and I apologize for it, but I really just want to help everybody out. So I'm going to do my best to type up more stuff and present more information to you guys about all sorts of stuff, hopefully in an attempt to make the world a better place, healthier place, happier place. We've all got to do our parts, and I do wish you all the best. I do wish the good Lord's blessing. Even if you don't call him Lord, even if you don't believe in the Lord, just know that good old Lance DuGoud does care about you. Peace, love, be well.